It's time for the chip race.
We're joined now on the line by Kevin Williams, theatre director extraordinaire and poker professional. Kevin, you have a bit of a gripe. You think that the landscape of live poker in the UK is changing, and you're worried about this change.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wouldn't say it's like quite as harsh as a gripe, but I think there's lots of good things going on. But I question just a few things. That I've been in the game for about 10 years now, and if you look at anybody who started playing around the time I started playing or before that, you look at their Hendon mob, you scroll down, and rather than saying EPT side event or GUKPT or whatever, it says things like Winter Festival or Summer Slammer, or that might be wrestling, but some kind of weird festival name like that, and it's indicative of a culture of live poker that's changed, where it used to be, especially in the UK, all based on local festivals that were run by local casinos. And the main difference there to what we've got now is that these festivals would be filled with lots of local players that had been qualifying live in the casino for a long time. And then wherever you go, obviously, there was a new kind of like batch of local money and batch of local players that were quite specific to those local casinos. Now, there were still traveling pros, and people did still like travel to these festivals. But now fast forward to what we have nowadays. We have these huge tours which have much bigger fields and much bigger prize pools, but I don't have the exact numbers on this, but anecdotally I would say might be made up between 80 and 90% of traveling players. Now, we know as pros who kind of pay attention to our expenses and our overheads and that kind of thing, that is arguably not sustainable to if the only poker you play is live tournaments, it's not sustainable to kind of cover the travel expenses and make a living purely doing those things. And that makes me wonder if there's a lot of people who are maybe not professionals but who play a hell of a lot of poker and who are always on every stop of these tours, how sustainable that is. Is everybody just going to run out of money at some point?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you that it's changed, and even somebody coming from the outside, I would have played the GUKPTs when they were more traditional, let's say, even though they obviously had some online qualifiers, and more recently the UKIPTs. But I actually think that a lot of the players who fill up the UKIPT, even if they've qualified online, they still very much fall under the category of recreational players. So I think all that's really happened is that instead of pulling from the local area, it's pulling players of all types, more travelling pros, but also more travelling recreational players. So I'm not sure that it's necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, Kev, you can't disagree with that. Like, you're one of the pros in the game, but when you travel, there's guys travelling from your home city to another city, and they're the recreational guys from your town. It's just got bigger, surely.
Sure, but I'd like to say two things. One, I question, I'll get onto this in a sec, but I question whether bigger is necessarily better.
Bigger's always better.
Well, that's just what...
Well, that's what your girlfriend might think.
Yeah, that's what I get told. But the other thing, online qualifiers are definitely like a completely different animal to live qualifiers, and you only have to talk to some of the people who have to put up the overlays in some of these big tournaments that have lots of online qualifiers, and sometimes they'll gripe, and there might be guilty people in the room here, that lots of those seats are won by pros. I don't know who.
You're having a go at Doak here. You're just having a go.
I don't know who's winning all those seats.
I don't know who that person is.
But I'd say that the online satellites are, which is online poker in general, is obviously quite considerably tougher than these live satellites used to be. So arguably, okay, you can play it from your own home, but maybe there's a different type of recreational player coming through. The general online qualifier is going to be of a slightly higher standard, I reckon, or probably a considerably higher standard than your recreational player who just plays weekly in his live casino, and his local festival is his one big shot.
Kevin, is that not just basically the nature of poker is changing? People now see poker as something that they'll travel for a weekend, and basically they're not really thinking about the expenses in terms of the way we think of them. They're thinking of it as, I'm going to have a nice weekend away from home, essentially like it's a mini holiday.
Okay, sure, but if we view, and there's by the way, there's tons of recreational players who I consider to be a lot better than a lot of quote-unquote pros on the circuit. But let's take the type of recreational player that might have a negative expectation in these tournaments, the type of recreational player who really is just going like for a punt and for a holiday. Not all of these people have completely unlimited sources of money. So even if in their mind they don't mind spending a bit of money on it, it is costing them more money. And if we view these people as like, people talk a lot online about the life of new accounts and the life of losing accounts and how to kind of extend the life of losing accounts so people don't just go broke too quickly and they can learn and develop and maybe become winning players or just survive longer in the game. And I think that that's the same with live recreational players. If the majority of their poker is poker that they have to spend quite a lot of money getting to, then they're not going to survive as long in the game.
And do you think poker is in danger of cannibalizing itself?
I think it might be. I mean, we look and we see these like wonderful, we're about to have like the second like £1 million guaranteed tournament at Dusk Till Dawn in the UK this year. I mean, that's incredible, and people talk about how what a great thing that is, and in many ways it is.
But that's 3 people getting all the money both times.
Exactly. That's the big problem. These festivals, by the way, these local festivals that we used to have, they weren't bowl festivals. They were like, I remember at the Rendezvous in Brighton, which was where I was at uni, and these were the ones I was playing. There used to be 4 times a year. There was a festival that had a 500 main event, which got like 100 runners and like 15 grand for first. There was a 300. There was a 200. There was a 100 cubed, and there was like 100 freeze out every single time. It got runners every single time. More recently, the same casino had a festival, and like the main event was a 200. And these kind of local festivals are really suffering because of these huge tournaments, which have these like massive. They have this massive jackpot appeal. But I would question whether that's necessarily a good thing. I'd say with some of these like really massive prizes, there's an argument that it's harder that it stays in the game. If you win like 10 grand or 20 grand playing poker, and obviously that is quite a lot of money. It's likely that a fair amount of that you might reinvest back into the game. If you win, like, I remember when I played the Manchester UKIPT in like season 2, and I went reasonably deep, and I spent a lot of time talking to the guy who went on to win it, and he was just a kind of a recreational player. He had a job and whatever, and he won it for whatever he won, like 100 grand or whatever. And like I asked him like the next time I saw him, like, so what did you do with the money? He said, I bought a flat, or like I put down a deposit on a flat or whatever. I think when people win like huge, like if someone wins like 200 grand, one person wins 200 grand. It's quite difficult for that money to all get filtered back into the poker economy.
Yeah, but I didn't hear you complaining when it was you who won 200 grand there last summer.
Believe me, plenty of that went back into the poker economy.
Yeah. But does that not make the point that it kind of is who wins it rather than what the amount is? I mean, if a professional player even wins an EPT, often all that happens is now they go off and they play every high roller they can reg for, and
it's often true. I mean, some of the guys will, but like, I guess the number might change a little bit. But if I won, I don't know. I remember when I was like really first getting into the game. There was that guy. I think his name was Jeff Williams, the yellow submarine guy. The guy was like 19 and he couldn't play at home in America, but he came and he like won the EPT Barcelona, I think it was. And there was an interview with him, and he said like, so as soon as he won that money, it was like $1 million or something. The best advice somebody ever gave him is don't lose this money playing poker. And I think that is still something that sticks with pros. It's tough being a poker pro, and we're also always talking about like having, I don't know, some other assets or some other kind of like revenue stream or whatever. And I'm not sure that people. I think you might be overestimating the heart some of these people have. Like there might be not enough gambling heart in the poker world anymore, and a little bit too much.
There's too many nits and cowards out there.
Yeah, exactly. It's the exactly. So, but yeah, so I think a lot of pros, like if they really do win a significantly large amount of money, maybe they will go and like buy a property or something like that.
Well, listen, thank you so much, Kevin Williams. Guys, we all like a big tournament, but you've heard it here first from Kevin Williams. Bigger is not always better.
Support your local festival.